Hello again everybody. I realise it's been considerable time since I last done a video. Didn't have a great winter. Wasn't feeling well a lot of the time. Had tendinitis in both elbows for a while. The left managed to recover reasonably quickly, but I'm still got lingering effects in the right elbow, and that was been going on since November sometime. So I've really spent very little time out in the workshop until recently, and even when I have been out here I really haven't felt like recording anything, and a lot of the time felt that I didn't get anything done. Anyway, I have had a massive spring clean, which probably doesn't show at all, but I have reorganised an awful lot of stuff. Got stuff better organised in terms of getting at some stuff. Found a lot of stuff I forgotten where it was, and I am back trying to get the Esprit moved forward. That's the car that is probably closest to going back on the road, so it's where I've chosen to focus my efforts, and there's a couple of things we can quickly look at on that. I plan to actually do a little bit of a proper video that might even involve some machining for the engine on the Esprit. So let's just have a look at what I've got immediately to hand that's Esprit related. Okay, well you can see a trolley with two Esprit gearboxes. The main case that's down on the bottom shelf and the red box is the original transmission from the Esprit, which I think might actually have been the last video I put out showing the internal corrosion issues. The gearbox at the top here is what's known as the C35 transmission. This is the later version, which has a different bell housing style with a side mounted clutch slave that was introduced for the turbo because of the slave cylinder being too close to hot things, and it has a slightly revised main case and a different fifth gear case with an improved oiling system, but almost all the internals are the same. There are a lot of claims about how many changes were made, but according to Harry Martins, who's the Citroen transmission specialist, really it's the fifth gear assembly that's different and pretty much nothing else. I took a risk on this used gearbox, which has led an interesting life. You can see a big chunk missing from the bell housing there that's been cut to clear a starter motor or something. One of the drive flange adapters had some interesting machining on it to tie up to a different CV joint or something. But anyway, this gearbox turned out to also have internal corrosion problems, mostly isolated to first gear, and it's probably a gearbox that I could run for a considerable period of time that it would hold up, you know. But in fact I have secured a rebuilt gearbox at a very sensible sum, and now only have to go and collect it. The difficulty there being I sold my van, and you can't get one of these safely into this a Lotus Excel. It won't fit through the boot aperture, and I don't really want to have it on the passenger seat. So I'm either going to have it sent or arrange for a friend with a suitable vehicle to take me over there. We'll get that sorted in the next couple of weeks. And the engine is sitting on a trolley I knocked up for it, and I'm mocking up a new intake system, and I plan for this to be the subject of its own video, because I think there is some interesting things going on, not just with the design of the intake, but actually how I'm going to make some of the bits for it. So the Esprit is now the only thing in the main workshop, vehicle wise. But there's a vehicle I haven't actually properly shown on the channel, out in the back lane, and it has been on YouTube. It was on Tim's Chargeheads YouTube channel. He came and had a little test drive of it. But this is a GTM Rossa K3. Now this stemmed from a project that started in the 1960s, where someone took a pair of mini front subframes, put the engine at the back, a folded steel chassis between the two with a fiberglass little coupe body, and it was known as the Cox GTM, GTM standing for Grand Touring Mini. And they were quite difficult to build, and they didn't produce that many kits, and the project was eventually sold, re-engineered somewhat, and then sold as the GTM Coupe. It was then updated years later to become the Rossa, with styling similar to this, still mini based, and then later still became metro based, and this being the K3 because it's based on the K series metro, or the Rover 100, and again with a pair of front subframes. It is in effect a MGF, long before the MGF existed. That is simply built from a pair of metro front subframes. So this one is a full fiberglass monocoque and was built by students at Bradford University, and has spent very little time on the road. It was used on brake testing dyno. So I think they put it together in about 2007. A few years later it was converted into an EV, to add regen to the brake testing program. And then a few years later the program ended, it went into storage, was eventually bought by one of the lecturers, who then sold it when he wanted to fund the building of another aeroplane, and popped up online. I thought that'd be fun. Turned out I knew the owner, and did a deal, and he was able to deliver it, and it's my local shopping car, replacing the G-Wiz. Now it's quite old school. It's a lead acid battery setup with a huge AC induction motor, and at some stage I will upgrade it to a very much lighter lithium battery pack, and a very much lighter but very much more powerful, like double the power, motor drive system. But at the moment it works, it's being used just as my local running around, my shopping trolley. It does unfortunately leak like a sieve, but I think they always did. Didn't turn the lights on at this end of the workshop. The other thing that got majorly sorted out was my little lean-to, which I could just about pick my way to the doors, so if I needed to wheel the crane into the main workshop I could. But this is now actually clear enough that I've got the stalled Freccia project on the bench, and my 350 Sport which is all insured and taxed and all the rest of it, can be taken out for a ride if I feel the mood. And I installed a ceiling and permanently installed the lights, which was a very long overdue job. A little bit of reorganisation of the shelves got done, and the workshop is actually, the workbench is now clearer than it has been in for a while, and there's a few things on it I'm working on, including an automatic coil winding machine that needs a few repairs and upgrades before I can do a little bit of coil winding. So that's about it for the moment. Like I say, I shall be doing a little video on the intake system on the Esprit's Alpha engine, and until then, we'll see you soon.